All right, it's 11:04. Let's get this party started.
Hi, this is Brian. Welcome to Philosopher's Notes TV. Today we're going to do an episode on The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. As always, we've got a great book, and we've got the 6-page PDF Philosopher's Notes where I've pulled out, 10 or so of my favorite big ideas from that book. And I'm excited about this one. So, The Science of Getting Rich. A couple of things before we jump into it. Number one, I avoided it for a couple of years because of both the cheesy title and the funny sound of the author's name, Wallace D. Wattles. How great is that? But The Science of Getting Rich is actually a phenomenal book. It's a tiny little essay, essentially, and just packed with goodness. It's also the basis of the movie The Secret, one of the inspirations behind that movie. And frankly, I don't think they did the book justice at all. I think it was way too focused on the thinking aspects and whatnot, and the visualizations, and kind of some magical thinking, versus the true consciousness that we need to have in order to attract the wealth we want to see in our lives, and the action required to actually manifest it and create it. This could be a very, very long discussion. We've only got another 8.5 minutes, so we'll jump in. So first of all, Wattles establishes the fact that there's a science to getting rich. He likes to say, like algebra, you can follow certain equations and you will solve problems. In this case, if you follow his science of getting rich, you will attain abundance and wealth in every sense in your life. So that's interesting. And what I find most interesting that I talk about first in the note is the logic of why we should want to get rich. A lot of times we kind of distance ourselves from wealth and from abundance and from money. We have an ambivalent relationship with money. Sometimes we want it, sometimes we feel like we're greedy if we want it, and it's difficult to find that relationship where we really feel an integrity. And I know I struggled with that several years ago and continue to move through that. But I loved this book and another great one called Spiritual Economics that we also profile in the notes that you can check out. I read those two about the same time, maybe 5-6 years ago, when I was going through my own challenges of integrating spirituality and capitalism. And they really helped move me through that phase. And this particular idea was one of the most essential. He says, when we're looking at the logic of why to get rich, he says, first, let's establish the fact that there's no greater service we can give to God and to humanity than to make the most of ourselves, to become the most extraordinary human beings we can become, right? That is the way we can serve God and humanity most fully. I think we'd all agree on that. Might describe it a little bit differently, but I think we'd agree on the essence of that. So that's principle number one. Principle number two is, if we want to make the most of ourselves, to truly become the most extraordinary human beings we can become in service to God and humanity, we need a certain amount of money. And he would offer, we need wealth. We need true abundance to be able to do the things, to be able to experience the teachings, the life experiences that really allow us to fully express ourselves. And if we want to honor our commitment to live our highest potential in service to God and humanity, we need to recognize the fact, he says, that we need a certain amount of abundance, riches, in order to do that. And if you're really committed to living at your highest potential, you need a fairly significant amount of money. So that's the basic idea that he walks through, and it's something that I buy into. I think that for me, why I'm so excited about circulating wealth, and it's not accumulating it so I can spend it, it's circulating it by creating something that I love, like these Philosopher's Notes, and giving it to you for a price that I think is extraordinary, receiving money from you, and then circulating it in ways that help me grow and help me actualize so I can create more and I can give more in the months and years and decades ahead. For example, I have a massage in a couple of hours today. Well, I love having the abundance to be able to support people who have dedicated their lives to helping people achieve higher levels of health. I love organic food, not needing to worry about the types of food that we get and my goddess prepares for us. Every once in a while I make a smoothie. But this idea of having the abundance so that I can become a better human being, so that I can serve God and humanity better is a really, really, really big idea. And that's the essence of his logic of why we want to get rich. A lot of people have ambivalence, like I mentioned, and I used to be one of them, and will often say things like, yeah, but what about Mother Teresa and what about Gandhi? They didn't have money and they changed the world. And it's an interesting thing because although Gandhi and Mother Teresa may have renounced their own personal possession of money and wealth, we need to recognize the fact that a lot of money went through Gandhi and his organization and Mother Teresa and her organization. They just didn't hold on to it. They circulated it. But it took an extraordinary amount of wealth for each of them to be in greatest service to humanity. And one of my favorite quotes that I mentioned in the note is from an industrialist who said, "No one realizes how much money it cost me to keep Gandhi poor." Pretty funny. So this is part of a much longer conversation we're going to have in the months and years and decades ahead, how we integrate spirituality and economics, spirituality and capitalism. I'm a huge fan of free markets and capitalism for reasons we'll talk about another time. But I think that business can be a force for good. And as we align with our deepest purpose, our deepest intention, we can do extraordinary things in the world. For now, let's see what other ideas we want to cover. I love the idea of becoming a creator and not being a competitor. Right? So when you look at the science of getting rich, one of the rules we need to follow or variables we want to plug in is this idea of creating, not competing. Too often, we look at competition, we look at business, we look at making money as a zero-sum effort, right? If I win, you lose. If you win, then I must lose. And that's just absurd. I remember a mentor of mine, I was talking about competition in one of my prior businesses. I think it was when I was running Zods in the early days. And he said, look, you have no competition. Until you're cloned, you have no competition. Just create. Just give yourself to the world. And it really, really stuck into my consciousness, and Wallace D. Wattles talks about it here in a beautiful way. So I'm all about contemplating and really feeling into how I can best give my gifts to the world, and then giving them fearlessly, passionately, consistently. And I'm not competing. A lot of people come up with ideas similar to Philosopher's Notes, and I celebrate it. It's awesome. And when I had my other businesses, I used to kind of worry about that more, and I found myself just celebrating the idea of creativity. How do we fully give ourselves to the world? And just enjoy that process. So try to check in and see if you're competing when you could be creating more. We can talk about that for a really long time. We will in the future. I'm going to do a lot more on business. Obviously, we want to focus on what we love to do. There are a lot of reasons for this. Which we talk about throughout the notes, but what do you really love to do? That's going to be the best place for you to circulate an incredible amount of abundance. Gratitude. If you want to plug into Source, do so through gratitude. I'm a broken record on that one, but check it out. gratitudelog.com/Brian Johnson. You can find me. I'm keeping track of my gratitude every day that I'm online. Every night I'm online, I do it on gratitudelog.com. Otherwise, I do it in my journal here. Right over here. But gratitude. It's impossible to be depressed and stressed and grateful. So connect to Source. Live from that place with gratitude. That's a big idea. And then the final big idea here is taking action. One of the things I didn't like about The Secret was the idea that was presented that if we just think hard enough and long enough about the red shiny bike or the beautiful home or the fast car, it will suddenly show up on our porch. And I don't believe in that kind of magical thinking. I think we want to get clear on what we want to see in our lives, of course. We want to have a vision of what's possible. And we want to take action. And Wallace D. Wattles talks about this a lot. We've got to consistently take action. He says it's not enough to simply imagine what we want, obviously. What are we doing? And he says it's not enough to pray one day a week on the Sabbath. We've got to pray consistently throughout the week. And we've got to pray while we move our feet. Ralph Waldo Emerson talks about that. When you pray, move your feet, right? An old adage out there. So we want to think about what we can do to create value in the world as we're holding this vision of what we'd like to see in our lives, and imagine who we can be and how we can give our greatest gifts in greatest service to the world. So that's a really quick look at this great book. Hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to sharing more and discussing this with you. See you.
Okay. Has anybody read The Science of Being Rich? I read it a long time ago. I actually have the book at home, and I have the audio book. And I read it because if you watched when The Secret first came out, there was a point in the very beginning of The Secret, the lady, Rhonda Byrne is her name. She's going through talking about the book she read. She goes, a book changed my life. And they flashed the book for like a quick second. And I kept going back through the video trying to stop it on what the book was. And I stopped it and I figured out it was the Waddles book about science of getting rich. So I went and got it. It's read very archaically in a different type of older English style of language, which is it's very interesting. And I do agree with what he says about the action part of it, because being able to visualize and doing those things does not actually make things happen. It's the action that makes things happen. What I wanted to point out, though, is that the science of getting rich, there's a science to almost everything that has an outcome that you can figure out how to do it. And there's a science to real estate. And as many of you have learned, that I've actually put together the science of real estate as far as the numbers and how that works. But first, let's talk about the logic of why you should get rich. Like, I ask this question in a lot of my classes, like, can money make you happy? And I get a lot of different answers. And before I start trying to trick everybody to answer this question, I say, does money bring you happiness? And a lot of people will say, no, it doesn't, blah, blah, blah. And I say, well, I challenge that. I challenge that if I gave you $100,000 and you went down to Children's Hospital to one of those dying children and started granting wishes to those children, you're not going to tell me that any amount of money I give you and you gave to those kids that would make you happy. Most people would agree that kind of thing makes you happy. So money is only good for the good that it can do. So I think that creating abundance and creating a lot of money, if you can meet all of your needs, meet all of your family's needs, and then take anything extra and go out and just give it away to people, like that is like the definition of what life should be about, in my opinion. I find it very interesting about the creator, not the competing, is what he was talking about. And I think that's challenging to do that in real estate, because it almost feels like competition when there's all these agents out there, right? There's so many agents out there. We have rankings. We have your number one, your number two. But in reality, it's you versus you. You are able to accomplish almost anything that you want to accomplish, regardless of what anybody else does. Unless you go on another appointment with other agents, which honestly, I think it happens. I don't know. I know Tracy's on here. I don't know how often it happens. I don't track how many times we compete against other agents and beat them, but we also compete and we lose. But I think it's probably, if I had to guess, I'd say it's like maybe 25% of the time. But in that aspect, it's not actually, we're not losing out to that other agent. It's like we didn't deliver the value that that person needed. So that's kind of like us against us as well. GratitudeLock.com. I didn't know about that. I'm going to check that out. But I think that it's really important to acknowledge gratitude every day. When I write down my goals twice a day, I write down the things that I'm grateful for. And normally it's the things that are closest to me, and then it usually works itself out. I actually was not super excited about the book, just like he wasn't. When he talked about the science of getting rich and how it's kind of a cheesy title, I didn't like that either. There's another book out there called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. It's a financial book. And I actually avoided this book as well because it sounded very cheesy and guru-ish that I wasn't really excited about. But it is actually one of the best financial books you could ever read that will help you with anything that you need. I give this book out to gifts. I give it to my stepkids. I've given it to my kids. One of them read it and said it was literally the best financial book they ever read. And they're really smart kids. So I would recommend that you get that because it'll help you with financial advice with like literally anything like 401ks, IRAs, how to save, spend money. Ramat Sethi is the guy's name that wrote it. He actually has a Netflix show, which is, I don't think it shows his full capabilities. It's a good show, but the book is way, way better. A lot of what we're talking about in this book and a lot of what we talk about when it comes to real estate is all centered around one thing. And it has nothing to do with skill. It has nothing to do with talent. It has nothing to do with ability. It all has to do with mindset. And the mindset aspect of this is you actually being able to believe that you can actually do it. And so when we break down you believing you can actually do it, it comes down to action and volume. And what I say is when you look at the science of real estate, the average person knows about 300 people. So you have 300 people. So the number one thing that most agents do not do when they join our office or just start real estate is that they don't take these 300 people and put them somewhere. They don't put them into their database. They don't live anywhere. They kind of live all over the place. And I had an agent that contacted me the other day, and they needed help, and they needed this, and they needed that, and we offered them help, and they're like, I don't want to work with a coach. I don't want to work with this person because I'm going to give up a split. And it's like, you can't be worried about giving up a split when you haven't made any money yet. Part of giving up a split to have somebody help you is so you can get to your goal faster. But they were worried about that. They were worried about all of these different things. And then they contacted me going, hey, you know, can you give me some people to call? And so I looked this person up in our database to see how many people that they had in their database, and the number was 0. So that comes back to, there's a science to real estate. So you get your 300 people, you all know 300 people. So if it takes a minute to find these 300 people and put them in your database, however long that takes is worth it. Because you have to start, and my wife reminded me of this morning when I was coming into work, as we were talking about business things. And if you want something really big, like let's say you want $1 million a year in real estate, you want to make $1 million a year in real estate. That's a really big idea, but you have to start small. And the way you start small is one person at a time. And I think that with all of these systems and shiny objects out there, agents have this idea of like, I'm going to send mass emails, I'm going to send mass text messages, I'm going to send mass phone calls, I'm going to contact as many people as I possibly can, thinking that that is the way to be successful, when in reality, it's a one-on-one game. It's like one-on-one basketball. So the way the math works is that 6% of everybody you know is going to buy, sell, or refer business out when it comes to real estate in the next 12 months. Now, I've actually been given new numbers. Now, according to the MREA, that is not 6%, it's actually 16% is the number that I was given. My coach told me it's 10% and our team did 13%. So I like going with 6% because it seems like a very realistic number based on all the other numbers being higher. So 6% of 300 is 18. So that means if you know an average of 300 people, that everybody on this planet has the ability to do 18 deals a year. So the way you get to these 300 people is that you go talk to them one by one, by one, by one, by one, by one, by one. You have individual conversations with them. You talk to them, you don't email them, you don't text them, you don't Facebook them, you don't X them, you don't do any of those things. You have a real conversation with them. Because the secret to real estate in any way, shape, or form is how deep is your relationship with that person. The deeper your relationship is going to get you to where you want to be with them, to where if they don't use you, they're going to feel really bad about not using you because you are so close with that person. And typically, you find that when they don't use you, it's just because you don't have that connection. And that's really the only reason there is. But you don't get there without the action part of it. And if you have a guy like Richard Schulman, who's a great guy, he was #1 in the region, he did 256 transactions. If he did 256, like, where was everybody else? Those are 256 transactions that everybody else had an opportunity to be a part of as well. The you versus you. So any amount of time that you want to give yourself, you can get from 0 to where you want to be. And it just reminded me of something he was talking about in the video. Tracy and I were watching a 60 Minutes episode. It's going to tell how old we are, like we watched 60 Minutes. You watch 60 Minutes? Oh, okay, I don't feel so bad now. So, but they talked about the creator of NVIDIA, which was back in 1993, they were a graphics design company that worked with graphics for video games. They went from 1993 to 2024, which is 21 years. They are now leading the industry in robotics and artificial intelligence and chip design. And it's a $1 trillion company. It's one of the top 5 most profitable companies in the world. And it took 21 years. That's actually, in the grand scope of most people's life, that's not a long time. And that being said, I mean, I go back to Amazon, I go back to Elon Musk, I go back to all of these people that have billion-dollar companies, Mr. Beast. Like, it just takes patience and time on task and going after one person at a time and creating that really, 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 really strong relationship. I know when I coach with people that I tell you, you have to have 25 conversations a day. If you had one really strong conversation a day for a year, every year, at the end of the year, that would be over 350 conversations you would probably have. That would create a major 6 to 7 figure business based on one conversation a day. But it takes the action to do so. So when I go through here, I see everybody on the call, I see everybody in the office, I see all of your numbers. Going through the steps of taking your database, taking your people and putting them in the database, having personal conversations with them on a daily basis, and then adding to that database every day is the most important thing you can do if you want to move your business forward. You have to be consistent in that behavior, and you have to be patient with your process, because everybody's process is going to be different. Do we have any thoughts or questions on anything that I've talked about so far, or anything on the video that we saw? So at this point, what I would say was I would ask everybody, like, do you have everybody in your database, and do you have a plan on getting that next person in the database? Like, where would you go find the next person? Joseph, do you have everybody in your database?
I have a lot of people I have to actually add.
Mm-hmm.
That I put notes in my computer. I
Yeah.
have like maybe 20 more people I have to add.
Okay. Do you know how many people in your database total?
I think I have around 300 something now.
Okay, that's good. That's good. What about you? Most people don't. So let's
I
just,
have 700 people on my phone. I mean, when I first,
Yeah.
I was pretty intentional
yeah,
about going through and leading numbers that weren't
yeah,
real or whatever.
yeah.
And yeah,
Have you got everybody in your database yet or no?
I've talked to
Have you put them in your database though?
the thing on, yeah, I did
Yeah.
the Context Plus, and I think most of the people that are on my phone are in that.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, I'm used to my phone for
Yeah.
calling and texting.
So now, so there's an app that you can download for Keller Williams that has Command on there, and you can actually just pull your contacts from there. So if you have them downloaded and you have the app, you can just call them from your phone normally and keep notes. And so after, like, you have everybody, you put them in your phone, you have 18 possible deals happening. The next thing that you need to do is put them on some type of follow-up plan, because calling them is one thing, but you want some automation to go out as well after you make the phone call. The after you make the phone call is the important part. You have a happy birthday message go out. You have a monthly newsletter go out. There's no specific thing that has to go out, but there has to be an abundance of communication when you talk to your people and they're in your database. Thought I was in trouble for a second. Joey comes walking in the room. So the key is you have to have an aggressive amount of communication. It has to be consistent. It just has to be a lot. And it's probably way more than what you're already doing. Most people that I know don't communicate with their database enough. Any thoughts or questions on anything we've talked about so far?
About half the people I'm pretty comfortable with, and then other half of the people, like, I feel kind of intimidated by.
So what makes you intimidated by them?
I I don't know, the way that they've treated me in the past, or just
Okay.
things that have happened.
Okay. So I mean, are those people you would probably just not want to talk to ever again?
There are people I think that like, I actually would have a hard time doing business with.
Uh-huh.
I don't think there is that level of respect there, otherwise, obviously, I feel comfortable talking
Yeah.
to them.
Do you think that's something that could be solved if you reconnected with them and tried to move the relationship forward in a different way?
Some of them, no.
So the key is not to make it super difficult, right? So if there's somebody that you're like, I just really don't have any interest in dealing with this person, then you just delete them. Just delete. And Tracy and I have done that. There's people that we've just deleted. Like, is there a chance for business there? Maybe, but we don't want to work with these people anymore. But also take this into consideration. It's not about them using you. It's about them referring you as well, because I feel, because I've seen it, most agents screw up the relationship with everybody and they don't capitalize on the refer part of it. They don't have the conversation with that person in expectation of getting a referral. Their conversation is like, I want you to give me a deal. And instead of it's just like, no, I need you to know me well enough to refer me to somebody else. So there's people that have family members that will not use them, but they'll refer them out. And I feel like that's the expectation you should have with everybody. Not that they're going to use you, but that I need you to tell other people about me. And so like me, the kind of person I am, I don't have a problem asking. I'm like, would you ever refer me to somebody else? Would you be okay with that? And asking for that, because it makes that conversation a little bit more simple, because I'm not asking you for business. I'm just asking, would you send my information to somebody else to?
Yeah, that's a
Possibly.
whole new thing, so
Yeah.
I think like, obviously, I'm a very person, so talking to people is something I mind, but
Yeah.
I've never been like in marketing, so like, oh, like, could you refer me? That's a little.
Yeah.
Guessing.
Well, so that's a conversation you would have with somebody that you would never expect to get business from, right? You have kind of like a lukewarm relationship with, you guys know each other, but you're like, I think it would be hard to work with that person. So just have a conversation with that person and ask him to refer you out to other business. And I can tell you, this will happen with some people, is that you will push them away and say, I don't want to work with you, but can you refer me? Like, that's the vibe you're giving off. Like, I don't need your business, but if you can refer me to somebody, that would be great. What'll happen is that actually makes them want to work with you more, because they know that like, oh, you don't want my business? You know what I'm saying? And it's not everybody. And every time I give you an example, it's going to be a little bit different, because when I'm talking about working small, I'm talking about personal relationships with everybody one-on-one, and every relationship is going to be a little bit different. But if you have people in your database that you're just not interested in working with, and like, that's just doesn't make you feel good, then just get rid of them. Move on.
Another part of it is the confidence too, that makes you intimidated by people.
Yeah. Do you know how you fix that?
Maybe they, like, there has been one or two like random things that have happened, maybe like, just a little intimidated by the person, but not like you think they're like a horrible person.
Yeah.
It's just like, you're just a little.
Well, you know how you fix confidence in that situation? So you have to talk to more people. You have to have more conversations. If you have real estate conversations every day ad nauseum, like just constant real estate conversations, talking about the market, talking about what's going on, so on and so forth, in a short amount of time, if you do it enough, you'll have enough confidence to where you can talk to anybody about anything. Because most people only know what's regurgitated on the news and on media and stuff like that, right? So if you are having conversations with everybody around you, and everybody around you hears that you're having these conversations, that's going to help you build up confidence, because you're going to be able to answer questions like this or like that. Because what'll happen is you'll talk to somebody and you won't know the answer, and you'll get stuck, and you'll have to go through in your mind.
And it's the same thing with like, kids. I think like I'm in this bad, kind of thing of where I do actually know a lot. I've been reading a lot. I've been
Yeah.
going on stuff, but
Yeah.
I just don't think that, because I've been shut down a lot, sometimes I don't think people want to hear it. So then I'm like.
So
well,
you don't think other people would want to hear it?
Certain people who give up that vibe. Certain people I'm close to, I know that they listen, like a couple of my best friends, I know they would listen to what I have to say.
So what I would say, and I think this would probably benefit everybody, is you have to be careful about the stories you create around other people that may not be their story, it's just the story you're creating. right?
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you how many times that like I've had conversations with people and it's like, I created that story. They didn't, that's not their experience. So you never know their experience. And a lot of times when you can get into conversations in real estate with people, is that if you ask them questions about real estate, hey, did you see that this happened or whatever? Did you see that house that was for sale down the road? Did you see, like asking questions is one of the most powerful tools that you can use in real estate because it takes a lot of the pressure off of you and it gets an insight to what the other person knows. Like, hey, did you see the house that went for sale about $5 million 2 blocks away? And they'll be like, no. I mean, make sure you have that information, like that you know about the house,
Yeah.
but like you ask, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, okay. I didn't know if you knew who that was. Or did you hear about that thing on the news about blah, blah, blah? Like ask people questions and that way it doesn't look like you're asking, but all you're doing is making them aware, which raises you at a level in their mind. You know what I'm saying? So that's a really great way to engage with people is just start asking them the questions. Hey, did you know about this? Did you hear about that? And then it creates a different connection with you because real estate's top of mind for you. And now you just made it top of mind for them by asking them a question and it had nothing to do with like, do you want to buy or sell?
Yeah, and it's like asking questions is the same thing with the other business I've been in. It's the best way to teach. Like I love, there was one class I had that taught us just basically present information for like 2 minutes and spend 50 minutes letting the students ask questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you start asking questions, especially if you're in a group format, everybody learns. And even though you know the answer, like I ask questions, so I actually, it's asking questions is a huge sales tactic, but I learned it because as a police officer, that's one of your main ways to get people to confess, is I ask them questions. And when I was trained as a police officer, I was trained, don't ask questions you don't already know the answer to. And so when I ask, so like when I do this with my kids and people, I ask you a question, I probably already know the answer. I want to see what you're going to say. Because now if you lie to me or if you say something different, I'm going to know a little bit more about who you are. And so that's why I ask a lot of questions. And so like, I don't have enough time to give you enough examples, but asking questions is the most powerful tool in sales because it makes people think and it gives you time to think. Like on an expired listing script that I have is that my number one question is like, if you would have gotten the price for your house and sold it, like what was the plan? Where were you going to move to? And then I use that as a tool to get to an appointment. And everything I ask is a question. It just leads them down a certain path. Any thoughts or questions before we move on? Thank you guys for being on here. I really appreciate it.
All good stuff, Frankie.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that, man. All right. So I think everybody's task for today, if you haven't done it, is make sure everybody is in your database. Make sure that you have a follow-up plan with everybody in your database and take action and call as many people and have personal conversations with everybody as you can. That would be my goal for you guys today. So let's play the last video so we can get out of here because I have to run off to another appointment, but I really appreciate everybody being here. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day.
Haters motivate me because when they talking about me, that means I'm doing something.
You see, while you're over there watching me and talking about me, I'm working. I'm working hard. I'm taking things to the next level. You keep gossiping and I'll keep working. You keep talking smack and I'll keep working. You keep focusing on everything and everyone else and I'll keep working. And when you finally look around at where you are and where I'm at, you'll realize that you have nothing left to talk smack about. And you will lose and I will win.
That person who was your hater, they thought they defeated you. That person who told you you'll never amount to anything, they thought they defeated you.
Use them for fuel. Use them for energy. Put them on the mental Rolodex in your mind. And when you don't want to do shit, roll through your brain. Pull up that motherfucker that you need. That person who said you couldn't do something. Use it for energy. Instead of killing them with kindness, torch them with success.
Oh, you're being unrealistic. You're dreaming. Yes, I am dreaming. So a lot of people have stopped dreaming. Don't you stop dreaming.
You're gonna get up, you're gonna get dressed, you're gonna get out, and you're gonna do what you've been called to do. You're gonna be what you called to be. You're gonna have, and you're gonna prove to everybody that tried to break you, you're gonna prove them wrong. Everybody that tried to stop you, everybody that tried to kill your dream, you're gonna prove all of them wrong.
When you're uncommon, get ready for the criticism. When you're uncommon, get ready for the opposition. When you're uncommon, get ready for the common people not to understand you. When you're uncommon, have uncommon ways. Get ready for people to try and block you and conspire against you.
Never allow anybody to make you feel bad about being so blessed when you've worked your ass off to get it. You decided all the clubs, partying, hanging out, and all that shit. That ain't for me. I'm gonna be out here running in the hot sun, practicing, playing basketball, shooting on weekends while everybody else is clubbing and hanging out. You got your focus right. You see me in my Rolls Royce, private planes, rooftop hotel, 5-6-star lifestyle. I've worked my ass off to have it, and you can keep all your little slick ass comments to yourself. Cause guess what? I don't remember the last time I lost sleep over a hater.
Shut the f***ing noise out. Embrace the fact that people don't like you. It means you're doing something right.
Develop the interior core where it doesn't matter if people call you crazy. One of the things limiting you from your income, your impact, a world-class life. You care too much about what people think about you. Everyone has an opinion. Why let the opinions of other people deny you from a life that will make history?
All right, guys, thank you so much for coming. Everybody have a fantastic day.